Royal guard enters the toilet. After Princess Charlotte's voice cracks, yelling, "Get out, pervert." Princess Charlotte moved slowly through the halls, her steps light, almost whispering against the polished floor. It was a rare moment of calm for her. Mornings were usually busy, filled with lessons, meetings, and appearances. But today, she had a few moments to herself. She cherished these peaceful times, when the palace seemed to breathe slowly, when the distant sounds of servants and guards were just soft murmurs. Charlotte's favorite part of the palace was its gardens. She loved walking among the flowers, listening to the gentle rustle of the leaves and feeling the warmth of the sun on her skin. Today, however, she had something simpler in mind. She wanted a quiet morning in her private quarters, just to read, to write in her journal, and to think. Her personal quarters were on the second floor, away from the main halls. A small suite of rooms opened onto a balcony where she could see the sprawling gardens below. The walls were decorated with soft pastel colors, paintings of distant landscapes, and shelves filled with books she had collected over the years. It was a small sanctuary in a life that was often crowded with duties and expectations. As she entered her room, she noticed the morning sunlight falling perfectly across her writing desk. She smiled to herself, feeling grateful for the small comforts of her life. Even as a princess, she appreciated the simple pleasures: a warm cup of tea, a favorite book, or the gentle sound of birds outside her window. Today, she set aside her diary and simply looked out at the garden, watching the roses sway in the breeze. Meanwhile, the palace staff was busy as usual. In the kitchens, the chefs prepared breakfast with precision and care. In the corridors, the guards moved steadily, their polished boots echoing faintly on the marble floors. Each guard had a duty to protect the royal family, a responsibility they took very seriously. Their training was intense, their attention to detail constant. It was a life of discipline, but one that required vigilance at all times. One of these guards was young, just a few years into his service. His name was Thomas, and he had been assigned to patrol the private quarters area today. He had trained for years for moments like this, moments when even the smallest detail could mean the difference between safety and danger. He walked slowly, keeping his eyes sharp, aware of every sound, every shadow. To Thomas, the palace was not just a building. It was a responsibility, a living organism that needed careful attention. As Charlotte settled into her chair by the window, she thought about her lessons from the previous day. She had been studying history and had a new curiosity about the lives of past monarchs, their struggles, and their responsibilities. She scribbled a few notes in her notebook, her handwriting careful and precise. Her mind wandered as she reflected on how life had changed over the centuries, yet some challenges, like safety, trust, and vigilance, remained constant. Outside her room, Thomas continued his patrol. He moved with quiet steps, his eyes scanning every corridor, every door. He knew the palace well, but he never allowed himself to be complacent. Each day could bring something unexpected, and he had to be ready. Today felt ordinary, almost routine, but he knew from experience that even the quietest mornings could turn into moments of tension in an instant. Back in her room, Charlotte decided to prepare for the day. She went to the wardrobe and selected a comfortable outfit. She enjoyed the small ritual of choosing her clothes, arranging them neatly, and making sure everything was in place. Even in her private moments, she appreciated order and care. She liked to feel prepared, ready for whatever the day might bring. She moved to the small writing desk again, picking up a book that had caught her eye the previous evening. It was a collection of stories about courage, about people who had faced challenges and overcome them. Charlotte loved reading such stories because they inspired her, reminding her that even in her life of privilege, she could face difficulties with strength and calmness. The palace, in the morning light, seemed almost magical. Sunbeams streamed through the tall windows, illuminating the intricate designs of the carpets and the soft patterns on the walls. The sound of birds outside added to the sense of peace. Charlotte took a deep breath, feeling a sense of calm wash over her. For a moment, the worries of the day seemed far away. Meanwhile, Thomas paused at the end of the corridor, glancing down a side hallway. Nothing seemed unusual, and yet he couldn't shake the feeling that he needed to remain alert. His instincts, honed through rigorous training, told him that safety required constant attention. He adjusted the strap of his uniform, straightened his posture, and continued his patrol. Each step was deliberate, each movement careful. Charlotte decided to write a few lines in her journal. She wrote about the beauty of the morning, about the serenity she felt in her private quarters. Writing had always been a way for her to reflect, to capture her thoughts and feelings. As she wrote, she felt a quiet joy, a sense of connection to herself and the world around her. Unbeknownst to her, small sounds from the corridor reached her ears, soft footsteps that were not part of her normal routine. She paused, listening carefully. The palace was rarely completely silent, but something felt slightly different. Her senses, trained from years of palace life, picked up the subtle irregularity. She shook her head, dismissing it as a trick of her imagination. Thomas, walking down another corridor, noticed a door that was slightly ajar. He had walked past it earlier and remembered it being closed. Instinctively, he moved closer, his training guiding him. Every detail mattered, every sign could be important. He reached the door, his hand hovering near the handle. He listened, but for now, everything seemed normal. Charlotte, meanwhile, had finished a few pages in her journal. She set her pen down and looked out the window again, enjoying the calm. She felt safe in her private quarters, protected by the layers of security the palace provided. She had faith in her guards, in the routines that had been established over many years. The palace, with all its rules and traditions, was a place where safety and order were paramount. Time passed slowly, each minute filled with quiet reflection and gentle observation. Charlotte moved from her desk to a comfortable chair near the window, letting the morning light wash over her. She felt a sense of gratitude for these moments, moments when life felt simple and peaceful. She knew that soon the palace would become busier, filled with people and responsibilities, but for now she could enjoy this rare tranquility. Thomas continued his patrol, moving methodically through the corridors. He checked each door, observed the surroundings, and ensured that everything was in order. His mind remained sharp, focused on the importance of his duty. Each step, each glance, was part of a larger responsibility to protect the members of the royal family. As Charlotte sipped a small cup of tea she had prepared earlier, she thought about the importance of peace and safety in her life. She appreciated the work of those around her, the staff, the guards, and everyone who contributed to maintaining order in the palace. It was easy to take such things for granted, but today she felt a deeper awareness of how much effort went into keeping the palace secure. The morning continued in this quiet rhythm, each moment carrying a gentle sense of normalcy. Charlotte felt relaxed, yet alert, enjoying her private time while being mindful of her surroundings. She had learned that even in moments of calm, it was important to stay aware, to notice small details, and to appreciate the efforts of those who worked quietly behind the scenes. The palace morning continued quietly, the sunlight streaming through tall windows, illuminating the polished floors and elegant furniture. Princess Charlotte felt calm, almost completely relaxed as she sat near her window, enjoying the serene view of the gardens below. The soft chirping of birds and the distant rustle of leaves created a gentle soundtrack for her thoughts. She leaned back in her chair, stretching slightly, enjoying the comfort of her private space. For a moment, it felt as though the entire world had slowed down, leaving her alone with her thoughts and the quiet hum of the palace. She was reflecting on a book she had been reading, filled with stories of courage and wisdom. Each tale reminded her of how important it was to stay composed, even when faced with challenges. Little did she know, today she would soon need all the calm and courage she could gather. As she read, she noticed something unusual, a faint noise coming from the corridor outside her room. It was subtle at first, almost like a shadow brushing against the walls. Charlotte paused, her senses sharpening. Living in the palace for many years had trained her to notice even the smallest irregularities. She set the book aside and listened carefully. The noise became slightly clearer, though still quiet. It was a soft, shuffling sound, the kind of sound that could easily be ignored, but Charlotte's intuition told her that she should pay attention. She stood and walked cautiously toward the door, intending to check if a member of the staff was nearby. But when she reached for the handle, she hesitated. Something about the moment felt different, almost wrong. Meanwhile, Thomas, the royal guard, was continuing his patrol. His boots clicked lightly on the marble floors as he moved down the corridor near Charlotte's quarters. He had passed by her room earlier and noticed nothing unusual. But now, for reasons he couldn't immediately explain, he felt an instinctive pull to check again. Guards were trained to trust their instincts. and Thomas had learned over the years that instincts were often the first warning of trouble. Back in her room, Charlotte decided to step inside the smaller adjacent area, a space she often used for moments of privacy. She had barely taken a few steps when the sound from outside became clearer, more deliberate. Someone, or something, was moving outside her door. Her heart began to beat faster, but she reminded herself to stay calm. Panic was dangerous and clarity of thought was far more important. Suddenly, the door handle rattled. Charlotte froze. A wave of fear surged through her, sharp and immediate. She hadn't expected anyone to be there, and yet there was someone trying to enter. Her training in manners and composure clashed with the sudden, primal instinct to protect herself. She stepped back quickly, realizing she needed to act decisively. She raised her voice, sharper than usual, trying to sound firm and commanding. "Who's there?" she called, her words echoing slightly down the corridor. The sound seemed to pause the movement outside. For a brief moment there was silence, only the soft ticking of a distant clock. Charlotte's voice, usually gentle, carried a strength she had not expected to summon. The figure outside hesitated, but then resumed moving. Charlotte felt her heart pounding harder. She knew she had to protect herself, but she was alone in a private space, with only the thin door separating her from the unknown. Panic was knocking at the edges of her thoughts, but she pushed it back, focusing on clarity and action. Suddenly, the situation escalated. The intruder, for reasons unclear, tried to force the door open. Charlotte, alarmed and frightened, reacted instinctively. Her voice cracked as she yelled, louder and stronger than ever, the words leaving her mouth in a surge of fear and defiance. "Get out, pervert!" The sound of her voice traveled quickly through the palace corridors. Thomas, the young royal guard, was nearby, and he immediately recognized the urgency in the tone. Instantly, he moved with purpose, his training guiding every step. Guards were trained to respond to the calls of the royal family without hesitation, and Thomas's heart was racing as he ran toward Charlotte's location. Inside the room, Charlotte was still trembling slightly, but her presence of mind returned as she realized that help was on the way. She kept her stance strong, her voice firm, ready to respond if the intruder attempted anything further. She had learned to be brave in moments of uncertainty, and now that bravery was tested in real life. Thomas arrived at the corridor just outside her room, his eyes scanning for the source of the disturbance. He saw the slightly ajar door and immediately understood that the situation was urgent. He reached for his communication device, quietly alerting other guards nearby while carefully approaching the door. Every step was deliberate. He did not want to give the intruder an opportunity to escape or cause harm. Charlotte could hear the soft but purposeful movements of the guard approaching. It was a reassuring sound, but she remained alert. The palace had always emphasized caution and vigilance, and now those lessons were real, not just stories or instructions. She felt a mixture of fear, relief, and determination. The intruder, realizing the urgency, paused as if reconsidering the situation. Thomas, standing just outside the door, called out firmly, identifying himself as a member of the palace security. His voice was commanding, leaving no room for misinterpretation. The training and discipline of the royal guard were evident in every word, every action. Charlotte's voice, though still quivering slightly, remained strong enough to maintain her presence and authority. She knew that maintaining composure was important, not just for her safety, but to give the guards a clear sense of what was happening. Her courage, even in the face of fear, was becoming a key factor in resolving the situation. Outside, Thomas and another guard arrived from different angles. They worked as a team, surrounding the intruder without creating unnecessary risk. The intruder, sensing the precision and discipline of the guards, hesitated, unsure of how to proceed. The combination of Charlotte's warning and the guards' strategic positioning left no opportunity for mischief or harm. Charlotte, still inside, observed the situation carefully. She had learned to pay attention to small details, and now those lessons were vital. She noticed the intruder's hesitation, the way he looked at the approaching guards, and she understood that their training and presence were enough to prevent anything worse from happening. Her initial fear began to transform into quiet confidence. Thomas approached the intruder slowly, his hands ready but controlled. He spoke calmly, instructing the person to remain still. The intruder, recognizing that resistance was pointless, complied. Other guards arrived moments later, ensuring the area was secure. Within minutes, the situation was under control. Charlotte, finally able to relax slightly, let out a quiet sigh of relief. The intruder had been contained, and she was safe. She felt grateful for the guards' quick response and for the training that had prepared them to handle such unexpected events. The palace, usually a place of calm routine, had demonstrated its readiness and effectiveness in the face of a real challenge. Once the immediate danger had passed, Charlotte was escorted to a safer part of the palace while the guards conducted their investigation. She remained calm, answering their questions clearly, understanding that every detail was important. Her experience in the palace had taught her that clarity and cooperation were essential in times of crisis. The staff and guards worked efficiently, reviewing the security measures and ensuring that every aspect of the palace was checked. Charlotte watched quietly, appreciating their dedication and professionalism. She realized that the calm, orderly environment she often took for granted was maintained through constant vigilance and hard work. By the time Charlotte returned to her private quarters, the palace was beginning to settle back into its usual rhythm. The sunlight continued to shine, the birds continued their gentle songs, and the palace staff resumed their normal duties. Yet the morning had left a lasting impression on her. She had faced fear directly, and with the help of the guards, she had emerged safe and unharmed. Charlotte reflected on the events, thinking about courage, vigilance, and the importance of staying calm under pressure. She understood that safety was not just about physical barriers, but about awareness, preparation, and the readiness to act decisively. The morning had been a reminder of how quickly things could change, and how important it was to trust those who were trained to protect. Even as she returned to her routine, Charlotte carried a sense of quiet pride and gratitude. She had acted with bravery in a moment of fear, and the royal guard had acted with skill and dedication. The incident, though unsettling, reinforced the lessons she had learned over the years. Courage, alertness, and trust were always essential. The palace, now peaceful again, seemed almost unchanged, yet Charlotte knew that the morning had revealed a layer of reality beneath the calm surface. She had experienced firsthand how quickly normalcy could be disrupted, and how essential preparedness and vigilance were. She took a deep breath, appreciating the quiet moments and the dedicated people around her who ensured that the palace remained safe. The sound of hurried footsteps echoed down the corridor as Thomas, the royal guard, moved swiftly toward Princess Charlotte's quarters. His boots clicked sharply against the marble floor, a steady rhythm that reflected both urgency and focus. Though he was young, Thomas had been trained for moments like this, moments when every second mattered, when clear thinking could prevent danger. His heart raced, but his mind remained sharp, guiding his every step with precision. Charlotte, inside her room, kept a calm but alert stance. Though her voice had cracked earlier in fear, she now focused on observation. She watched the slightly ajar door, the soft shadows moving around it, and the corridor outside. Her instincts, sharpened by years of living in the palace, told her that the guard's arrival would be crucial. She knew that in situations like these, courage alone was not enough. Careful thinking and patience were equally important. The intruder had stopped momentarily, startled by Charlotte's shout and the approaching footsteps. For a brief moment, there was silence in the corridor. Then the figure shifted nervously, unsure whether to move forward or retreat. Thomas, reaching the doorway, immediately assessed the situation. His eyes swept the corridor, noting every detail, the intruder's posture, the way he held his hands, even the slight tremble in his movements. These observations, though small, were critical in guiding the next steps. Thomas raised his voice firmly, identifying himself as a member of the palace security. "Stop right there. Remain where you are." His words were steady, commanding, leaving no room for misunderstanding. The intruder hesitated, realizing that resistance was futile. Guards trained for these situations were not only physically capable, but also skilled in using calm authority to de-escalate tension. Charlotte, though still inside, felt a wave of relief. The presence of the guard gave her confidence, reminding her that help had arrived. She kept her attention on the door, ready to act if necessary, but trusting in the professionalism of the palace security. She had learned that composure and clear thinking could be just as powerful as physical strength in moments of danger. The intruder, sensing that he was cornered, began to move backwards slowly. Thomas maintained a careful distance, watching his every action. Other guards, alerted by Thomas's communication device, arrived from different angles. Within moments, the hallway was secured by multiple trained personnel. Their coordinated approach ensured that the intruder could not escape or cause harm, demonstrating the effectiveness of the palace's security protocols. Charlotte watched silently, her mind racing as she observed the scene. She noticed the disciplined way the guards moved, how they communicated with subtle signals, and how they maintained control without creating panic. It was a display of skill and coordination that impressed her, reminding her of the importance of training and teamwork. Thomas moved closer to the intruder, keeping his hands visible but ready. "Remain calm. You are surrounded. Any sudden movement will be noticed," he instructed. The intruder's eyes flickered nervously, scanning the corridor, realizing that escape was impossible. Thomas's calm authority contrasted sharply with the intruder's nervousness, showing how control of one's demeanor could influence a situation significantly. Charlotte's initial fear began to transform into cautious relief. She had faced an unexpected threat, but she now saw that it was being managed effectively. Her attention to detail, her awareness of the surroundings, and her earlier call for help had all contributed to the guards' swift response. She realized that courage was often most effective when combined with observation, clarity, and cooperation. The other guards moved in carefully, creating a secure perimeter around the intruder. They communicated with hand signals, maintaining silence to avoid escalating tension unnecessarily. Each guard knew his role and executed it with precision. Thomas remained at the forefront, guiding the intruder's movements and ensuring that he could not harm anyone. Charlotte, observing from behind a safe distance, felt a mixture of awe and gratitude. She had always known that palace guards were highly trained, but witnessing their actions in a real crisis gave her a new appreciation for their skill and dedication. She also recognized the importance of her own actions. The call for help, her attention to detail, and her composure had all played a role in managing the situation. The intruder, seeing no opportunity to escape, finally stopped moving. Thomas approached him carefully, maintaining a safe distance while speaking in a calm, authoritative tone. "You are now in custody. Cooperate and no one will be harmed." The intruder, realizing that resistance was pointless, complied. Other guards moved in to secure him fully, ensuring that he could not pose any further threat. Charlotte, now more relaxed, allowed herself a small sigh of relief. The immediate danger had passed, and the intruder had been contained safely. She remained aware, however, knowing that careful observation was still necessary until the situation was fully resolved. Her training in awareness and vigilance, often emphasized in her upbringing, had once again proven invaluable. Thomas and the other guards escorted the intruder to a secure area, maintaining careful control throughout the process. They checked the surroundings repeatedly, ensuring that no threats remained and that the palace's safety was fully restored. Charlotte followed their movements with her eyes, learning more about the careful planning and coordination required in security work. The staff, alerted to the situation, began reviewing the security measures in the palace. Every door, corridor, and entrance was examined to understand how the intruder had gained access. Charlotte, though shaken, observed with interest. She appreciated the meticulous attention to detail, recognizing that such diligence was essential to prevent future incidents. Thomas, standing nearby, reported the situation to his superiors. His report was clear, concise, and accurate, reflecting his training and understanding of the importance of documentation in security procedures. Every guard knew that their actions could have long-term implications, and thorough reporting was part of maintaining high standards. Charlotte, reflecting on the events, felt a sense of gratitude toward the guards. Their swift, coordinated, and disciplined actions had ensured her safety. She understood that the palace's security was not just about physical barriers or routines. It was about people, their training, awareness, and readiness to act decisively. The intruder, now fully in custody, was being questioned by senior security officers. Charlotte observed from a distance, aware that understanding the motives and methods of the intruder was crucial to preventing similar incidents. The palace's emphasis on vigilance and preparedness was evident in every step of the process. As the situation stabilized, Charlotte returned to her private quarters with Thomas walking beside her, ensuring her safety. The palace seemed calm once more, yet the events of the morning had left a lasting impression. She had faced fear directly, witnessed disciplined action in response, and learned more about the importance of composure, observation, and trust. She sat near her window again, letting the sunlight wash over her. The gardens below seemed peaceful, yet she now saw them with a new awareness. The palace, for all its beauty and serenity, required constant vigilance. Charlotte realized that safety and security were the result of careful planning, dedicated people, and the readiness to act when needed. The royal guard, Thomas, stood nearby, observing the surroundings even as the immediate danger had passed. His training had taught him that caution was never fully unnecessary, and that attention to detail was a key part of ensuring ongoing safety. Charlotte, noticing his steady presence, felt a renewed sense of confidence in the people who protected the palace. The morning, though disrupted by an unexpected event, had also been a lesson in courage and coordination. Charlotte reflected on her own actions, her call for help, and her focus during the moments of uncertainty. She realized that courage often involved not only facing fear, but also making clear decisions, trusting others, and staying aware of every detail. Thomas and the other guards continued their work, checking doors, corridors, and security systems. Charlotte watched quietly, understanding the importance of preparation, vigilance, and teamwork. Every guard knew his responsibilities, and every action contributed to maintaining safety in the palace. The incident had demonstrated how quickly normal routines could be interrupted, and how essential trained, calm, and coordinated action was in ensuring protection. By the time the situation was fully resolved, the palace had returned to its usual rhythm. The sunlight continued to illuminate the halls, birds sang softly outside, and the quiet hum of daily activity resumed. Charlotte, however, carried the memory of the morning vividly in her mind. It was a reminder that safety and security were never automatic. They were the result of careful planning, training, and decisive action in moments of uncertainty. Charlotte felt a deep appreciation for the royal guard, particularly Thomas, whose training, focus, and composure had been crucial in managing the situation. She realized that trust and courage were essential, not only for those who protected the palace, but also for those who lived within it. The partnership between vigilance and courage had ensured that the morning ended without harm. Sitting quietly, Charlotte reflected on the lessons learned. Awareness, preparedness, courage, and trust all had played a part in resolving the crisis. She understood that even in moments of fear, careful observation and clear thinking were powerful tools. The palace, though calm once more, had provided a real-life example of how quickly situations could change and how important it was to remain composed and alert. The day continued, and Charlotte resumed her routine, but the morning had left a lasting impression. She had seen courage in action, learned about vigilance in real situations, and appreciated the dedication of those who worked tirelessly to maintain safety. The palace, its beauty and its serenity remained, but Charlotte now understood the layers of care, training, and awareness that made that serenity possible. The palace slowly returned to its usual rhythm, but for Princess Charlotte, the morning's events lingered vividly in her mind. The sunlight streamed through the tall windows, casting gentle patterns across the polished floors, yet the serenity of the palace now felt different. There was a quiet awareness in every corner, a reminder that even in a place of grandeur and order, moments of uncertainty could arrive unexpectedly. Charlotte sat near her window, reflecting on the morning's events, feeling a mix of relief, gratitude, and thoughtful contemplation. Though shaken initially, Charlotte felt a deep sense of pride in how she had handled the situation. Her instincts had guided her to call for help, and her awareness of the surroundings had allowed her to stay calm. She realized that courage was not the absence of fear, but the ability to act thoughtfully despite it. The Royal Guard's swift response had been crucial, and she felt grateful for their presence, training, and professionalism. The palace staff, too, worked diligently to restore a sense of normalcy. Every corridor and entrance was checked, every lock inspected, and security protocols reviewed. The guards coordinated seamlessly, demonstrating the depth of their training and the importance of vigilance. Charlotte watched quietly, admiring the precision and dedication of those who maintained her safety. It was clear that every action taken had a purpose, and every detail mattered. Charlotte reflected on the importance of preparation. She understood that safety was not only about physical barriers, but also about awareness, training, and teamwork. The guards had shown remarkable skill, but she also recognized her own role in the morning's resolution. By calling for help, observing carefully, and staying composed, she had contributed to ensuring that no harm came her way. It was a powerful lesson in how courage, awareness, and cooperation work together. After ensuring her safety, Thomas and the other guards escorted Charlotte to a slightly more secure area of the palace. They walked beside her attentively, their posture alert but calm, giving her reassurance without creating alarm. Charlotte appreciated their care and professionalism. She understood that the calm exterior of the palace often hid the constant attention and vigilance required to maintain safety. As they reached the secure area, Charlotte took a moment to breathe deeply. She let the tension of the morning slowly ebb away, feeling gratitude not only for the guards, but also for the staff who ensured everything continued smoothly. She realized that many people, often unseen, worked tirelessly to maintain the palace's order and security. Their dedication had allowed her to face the morning's challenge with confidence. Once settled, Charlotte took some time to reflect in her journal. She wrote about the morning, noting how unexpected situations could arise even in familiar surroundings. She described her feelings of fear, the strength she had summoned, and the bravery and skill of the royal guard. Writing helped her process the events, turning a moment of fear into a lesson in awareness, courage, and appreciation for those who protected her. Meanwhile, Thomas reported the incident to his superiors. His report was detailed and clear, documenting every step of the morning's events, from the first signs of the intruder to the resolution. He emphasized the intruder's hesitation, the coordination among the guards, and the importance of Princess Charlotte's response. Such reports were essential, ensuring that lessons were learned, security protocols were improved, and future incidents could be prevented. Charlotte observed as the security team reviewed every detail of the incident. They examined the doors, the locks, and even the routes taken by the intruder. Each observation was methodical and thorough. She realized that safety was a continuous process, one that required constant attention, careful planning, and teamwork. The palace's outward calm depended entirely on the dedication and vigilance of its staff and guards. The day slowly progressed, and Charlotte resumed parts of her routine, though with a heightened sense of awareness. She visited the gardens, walked along familiar paths, and observed the staff as they went about their duties. The morning's events had left a lasting impression, reminding her that the palace was not only a place of beauty, but also a place that demanded respect, caution, and readiness. Charlotte also took time to speak privately with Thomas. She thanked him for his swift actions and for keeping her safe. Thomas, though modest, appreciated her words. He explained some of the procedures they followed and the training that allowed guards to respond calmly and effectively under pressure. Charlotte listened attentively, gaining a deeper understanding of the coordination, skill, and dedication involved in palace security. The palace administration decided to implement additional measures to ensure such incidents could not happen again. New protocols were introduced, including more frequent checks of certain areas and updated training for all guards. Charlotte, observing these improvements, felt reassured. She understood that while the morning had been frightening, it also highlighted areas where vigilance could be strengthened, turning a challenging experience into a positive step toward greater safety. Throughout the day, Charlotte reflected on the broader lessons from the incident. She thought about courage and calmness, the importance of paying attention to small details, and the value of trust in others. The morning had shown her that bravery could take many forms: calling for help, observing carefully, staying composed, and trusting trained professionals to act effectively. The Royal Guard continued their patrols throughout the day, their presence both reassuring and necessary. Charlotte noted their quiet attention to detail, the way they communicated silently, and the way they moved with purpose and awareness. Every step, every glance, was part of a larger effort to maintain safety and order within the palace. Charlotte realized that their training and discipline were not just routines, they were lifelines in moments of uncertainty. By evening, the palace had regained its normal calm, though the memory of the morning's events lingered. Charlotte reflected on how quickly ordinary moments could be interrupted, and how important it was to remain composed and aware. She recognized that safety was a shared responsibility, one that relied on clear thinking, coordination, and mutual trust. The morning had tested her courage and the guards' skill, and both had passed the test with success. Charlotte decided to spend the rest of the day quietly, engaging in her personal hobbies. She read her favorite books, wrote more in her journal, and observed the gardens from her balcony. The simple pleasures of the palace, the sunlight, the flowers, and the quiet, felt particularly precious after the morning's tension. She appreciated the calm more deeply, understanding that it was maintained through constant vigilance and care. Later in the evening, Charlotte reflected on the value of preparedness. She realized that even in moments of peace, it was important to be ready for unexpected events. Her experience had reinforced lessons in awareness, quick thinking, and trust in trained professionals. The palace's safety depended not only on walls and doors, but also on the courage, skill, and vigilance of the people who lived and worked there. As night fell, Charlotte felt a sense of closure. The intruder had been safely handled, the palace's security was reviewed and strengthened, and she had reflected deeply on the lessons of the day. The experience, though unsettling, had strengthened her understanding of courage, vigilance, and trust. She felt grateful for the royal guard and the staff, whose dedication had ensured her safety and maintained the palace's calm. Charlotte also recognized the importance of sharing her experience as a learning moment. She spoke to her advisors about ways to enhance awareness and readiness, suggesting small changes that could improve safety without disrupting the palace's routine. Her insights were valued, showing that even personal experiences could contribute to broader improvements in security and preparedness. The day ended with a quiet sense of accomplishment and reflection. Charlotte felt proud of her composure, grateful for the guards' actions, and reassured by the palace's ongoing vigilance. The incident had tested everyone involved, and their collective skill, courage, and professionalism had ensured a safe resolution. Charlotte understood that life, even in a palace of beauty and order, required awareness, readiness, and cooperation. As she prepared for bed, Charlotte looked out over the gardens one last time. The moonlight bathed the palace in a soft glow, creating shadows that seemed gentle and protective. She felt a renewed appreciation for the layers of care, vigilance, and dedication that maintained the palace's safety. Even in moments of fear, the presence of trained, attentive people could restore calm and security. Charlotte reflected on the broader meaning of the morning. She realized that courage, awareness, and trust were not just for moments of crisis. They were qualities to carry in everyday life. By staying vigilant, being prepared, and appreciating those around her, she could navigate challenges with confidence and calm. The day's events had been a reminder of the value of these qualities, and she felt grateful for the lessons learned. Finally, as the palace grew quiet and the last lights dimmed, Charlotte felt a deep sense of peace. The intruder had been handled, the palace was safe, and she had grown stronger through the experience. She understood that safety and calm were achieved not only through walls and routines, but through courage, awareness, and the dedication of those who served diligently behind the scenes. The day had been challenging, but it had also been a testament to human skill, bravery, and cooperation. Charlotte knew that she would carry the lessons of the morning with her always, appreciating the calm moments even more deeply, and recognizing the unseen effort that made such calm possible. The palace, serene once again, was a place of beauty, history, and safety, all maintained through careful attention, trust, and courage.